So we will be just starting our video and then proceed with the webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you who are joining our webinar today. My name is Yunus Khan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE, Local Governance for Sustainability. I'm delighted to lead this webinar to you today. Let me just once again make sure my screen is being shared with you. I hope you can now see my presentation. Patricia, can you just, okay, all good, I guess. This is a presentation prepared by ICLE in its capacity as the focal point of local governments and municipal authorities constituency to the UNFCCC. And this is a monthly webinar, which is an aim to facilitate the engagement of local and regional governments and their networks to the climate conference of parties at the end of the year, so that every month we review our progress and make sure we are following with our strategy and preparations. This webinar is also announced in a number of public, let's say, platforms. So it may be possible that our participants may not be necessarily the members of LGMA, but we would like to ask our partners to respect our dialogues, because sometimes we have some consultations that are not necessarily always public. We also record these sessions and we make them publicly available through links. But the modality is that we usually take a presentation around 40 minutes or so, and then we continue with Q&A and interventions from our partners. Time to time we have guests in our sessions, but this time in our session we will not have any guests for today. Let me now proceed with for those who'd like to participate also during the session, you can type in the Q&A box or the chat box so that we can respond as is appropriate. And if there's any urgency, we can also make sure that you can intervene during the session while the presentation is going on as well. So so for those who could recall the video of our introduction, this was our resources from the Paris Agreement's 5th anniversary, and we look forward to make another update. This was recorded in 2019 and 2020, sorry, but we look forward to prepare another one for the Glasgow package as well. Those who are familiar with the LGMA, it's a process, it's an engagement mechanism to the UNFCCC process since '95, and we are one of the oldest constituencies in the UNFCCC process. We are gathering around more than 30 plus accredited networks to the UNFCCC, but through our webinars and mailing lists, and especially our consultations, we're reaching out far beyond the UNFCCC accredited networks, because we are aware UNFCCC accreditations take some time and it's a tedious process. So we'd like to make sure that our consultations and information sharing is as diverse as possible. What we do, we usually intervene into the negotiation agenda items. We provide inputs. We nominate speakers into the workshops, but also in the COP processes, in the interventions. We also interact with the friends who are friendly with us, the national governments. And we also participate in the technical meetings, either to the sub-Saharan meetings or the workshops. Throughout the 1995 onwards, we have made major achievements. The primary goal was that UNFCCC, the text of the UNFCCC and the Kyoto Protocol did not recognize a role for local energy governments. And over these years, especially on the way to Copenhagen and especially afterwards, we made huge progress. In 2015, the Paris Climate Agreement preamble paragraph recognizes local energy governments as a partner. And now we were working for Glasgow as a means to make sure time for multi-level action has come, so that the Glasgow package could include a reference, and we made huge progress there. And we will focus on that again in a short while in terms of our achievements there. For those who would like to receive future information or past information, we have the website that is available for us. And we would like to encourage you to make use of these resources and the playlist and the YouTube channels and our homepage as well. Especially our COP26 website contains all the resources from our Glasgow engagement. During this monthly webinars, because of the unique agenda for 2021 and 2022, we have extended, we have made 23 webinars. We have shared more than 150 emails, and we have new members, especially from the UK, but also from other countries. We have a new roadmap, and there's a huge momentum that is coming up. For those who are willing to join us in our journey, feel free to register yourself in our webinars. The link that is provided here can take you through the sessions every third Wednesday at the 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. CET, the Central European Time. Based on the feedbacks we received, we amended the last webinar date, so it will be on the 14th of December. So you can already record this into your calendars and already enroll yourself so that these are already in your calendars as well. Before going on to details, I would like to keep us informed about some progress going on. And in that sense, you may recall we were tracking like a who is who page of the presidium of the COP26 or COP25. Those who are familiar, they should be aware that this is an annual leadership designated by the presidency, by the COP, that the regional groups assign one host country, and the parties approve this, and this party designates the champion or the president primarily. So it was the structure in the way towards Chile to UK was with the president assigned in the UK leadership. We had seen a number of other appointments beyond president and champion, and there was a number of engagement mechanisms as well. So here is the picture as of today towards COP27 Sharm el-Sheikh. Obviously, there are not too much major changes in the UK leadership. Alok Sharma continues and Nigel Topping continues. But it may be possible that those ambassadors or advisors who have been appointed before on the way to Glasgow may be either change, or their tasks or their teams may be dissolved, because it's normal that the presidency, when they finish their host of the COP, their capacity is reduced. But because of uniqueness of Glasgow, probably UK may continue. We are hearing that some of the staff has been assigned back to their own original teams. We also know there are several engagement channels of the UK presidency, and it's possible to expect that these may continue. One of them is the channel of constituency focal point meetings, where I'm joining also advisory councils at the UK level. One important engagement mechanism was the Friends of COP, and from a local government perspective, it was Eric Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles and the chair of C40 at that time. We know Mayor Garcetti is now appointed as a US ambassador to India. Because Friends of COP is a personal assignment, it may be possible that Mayor Garcetti can be in the Friends of COP as in his capacity as ambassador, US ambassador. But obviously, since he's not anymore mayor, or he will not be anymore any mayor, and he's not anymore the C40 chair, it may be possible to expect that we may discuss, or UK presidency, the COP presidency may discuss with us, or go back to C40 again to ask for a new appointment, which is a local leader who is active in charge in leading his city or network. So let's stay in touch, and let's stay tuned whether there may be updates on that. But now the important update is coming from the Egyptian side, which is obviously they are starting to step up. Today and on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of this week, there was a visit from the UK COP26 presidency to Egypt, and there was an announcement. At least now we know the president designate of COP27 will be the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Excellency Sameh Shukri. The Minister of Environment of Egypt, she is Her Excellency Yasmin Fuad, is appointed as the ministerial coordinator and envoy. That's her title for COP27 purpose. However, let's be aware, this position is not a UNFCCC mandate. This is a national prerogative of the government of Egypt. And this does not have any role in the UNFCCC process yet. So the expectation is that the high-level climate action champion from the Egyptian part will be assigned soon. And in that sense, we are waiting anytime, waiting for an announcement. There may be an announcement on Monday where the UK COP26 president, Mr. Sharma, will make an announcement. He will make an address, which will be broadcast on YouTube. And on the same day, Nigel Topping, the UK high-level champion, will also come in a session which is announcing the kickoff for the virtual criteria consultations. So on that day, there may be some announcements on the climate action champion as well. So let's wait and see. For those who are familiar, again, it may be good to recall once again the outcome of COP26. How did we leave? What was the legacy of COP26? First of all, there's a Glasgow Climate Pact under 3 negotiation bodies: UNFCCC, Kyoto Protocol, and Paris Agreement. And in the one on Paris Agreement and on the UNFCCC, we have a preamble paragraph which says that parties are highlighting the urgent need for multi-level and cooperative action. That is extremely important. First of all, the Climate Pact is continuing the second phase of Paris Agreement, which was not the case for Kyoto Protocol. Secondly, the term multi-level is for the first time into the UNFCCC process on the preamble paragraph of the Glasgow Pact, which is again a very strong resource for us. Just for you to know, the emission trading mechanisms, this joint implementation, ETS and CDMs, they were all one sentence in the 1997 Kyoto Protocol. So having one paragraph or even one word into the UNFCCC Paris Agreement, Paris Climate Pact, can be opening us a huge door, a huge opportunity, a new vision, if we can build upon it appropriately. That's why we have to now work on it. There are numerous references on collaboration on local and regional governments. For the first time, there's reference to constituencies. Marrakesh Partnership is being acknowledged. There is a reference to youth participation in local decision making, and the parties are expected to present a new NDC by 2022. This is also new, because traditional cycle was every 5 years. But for Glasgow, it was a new recommendation, because the ambition was not in the level that it was expected. On Article 6.8, there is an opportunities. There are numerous references to local and subnational. So it's time for us to work on this so that the vision of local and regional governments constituency, which is embedding sustainable urbanization or integrated sustainable urban and territorial development in its full sense, can be one of the non-market approaches. And Action for Climate Empowerment is also a huge agenda. There's a work program. It has numerous opportunities for local and regional governments. These were the UNFCCC level achievements, but we as LGMA also made some huge progress. We had 2 weeks of LGMA Pavilion. We had adopted our roadmap. We have been engaged with more than 400 people from across the world, either in the not party delegations or in the LGMA partners. We have hosted more than 200 events. We have made more than 12 interventions at the UNFCCC agendas. We have Race to Zero and Race to Resilience. Thousands of cities and regions have now announced their commitment. We have Glasgow Climate Food Declaration or Edinburgh Process, Edinburgh Declaration. Scotland and Wallonia announcing their voluntary commitments. US, Japan, US, China made announcements on subnational action. There are numerous announcements coming from the Leaders Summit and onwards. We'll see how much of them will address the local regional governments. And the GCOM also released a multi-level action playbook and impact report. These are the things that we should be proud and keep an eye on. And I forgot to mention the finance initiatives from R20 and our FMDV Global Alliance. So these are opportunities that we would like to continue to building forward. Over the past couple of months, weeks, we have worked with all of you. So we have a vision that we would like to move from time for multi-level to multi-level action delivers. So we have defined 4 priorities as of today. I mean, this is a work in progress. This is the live document. Of course, we may expect some changes, but tendency is that, first of all, we have to focus on NDCs, multi-level NDCs. We have to show Race to Zero, Race to Resilience commitments are all connected to NDCs. We had announced there are more than 60 countries across the world who have elevated their climate ambition or NDCs through working with multi-level collaboration. We should go back to those countries to make sure they bring their new NDCs as defined by Glasgow Climate Pact, so that our references are much more stronger. The current texts are far from our satisfaction, but it is a good opportunity. We would like to expand further the concept of multi-level to our collaboration with legislative and judiciary bodies. And we'd like to energize our working relation with UNFCCC, Friends of Multi-Level Action. COP26 was good to open a second phase of the Paris Agreement, but it was not enough. It was not even close to being a response to climate emergency. So there's an unfinished business on climate emergency. That is our second priority. We would like to bring to COP27 a number of agendas that was ignored a lot in Glasgow, which are like food, nature, adaptation, culture, and finance. We'd like to work on migration and loss and damage, and we would like to connect LGMA to Climate Vulnerable Forum, which is an opportunity for us to show the capacity of local NGOs to bridge the gap between the global north and global south. We look forward to having the first climate and urbanization ministerial level. This was a vision, or this was a dream for Glasgow, but it was not possible. We are hopeful with Africa COP in Egypt, because Africa has also put urbanization as a core priority. And we would like to make sure that Africa is strongly represented, but as well as Mediterranean and Middle East and North Africa region as well. This is also a uniqueness of Egypt. Egypt is more than Africa. Egypt is a strong country in Mediterranean. Egypt is a country in Middle East. So we'd like to make sure there's appropriate connections. On that front, this will be the next couple of slides that we would like to open the doors for our vision to make our LGMA much more robust. This was a commitment from Glasgow. It basically is aiming to make LGMA fit for multi-level action. We all have noticed that the current UNFCCC way of engagement is not enough for us to make sure that it is a multi-level vision, neither at the national level nor at the UNFCCC level. Therefore, we need to revamp and or almost reload LGMA governance and engagement. The proposal could be at this stage. I mean, this is again being presented for the first time to all our partners. We will discuss it in the afternoon. We will circulate also those presentations and ideas, and we'll create our working files. But the logic is that we could have an LGMA steering committee that consists of the focal point, ICLE, World Secretariat, co-chairs of regional working groups, co-leads of thematic groups, and co-facilitators of our annual COP26 or COP working group. This group, the steering committee, could report and contribute to this monthly webinars, and we could have new working groups. We could have our shared files. We could link this steering committee to the UNFCCC Friends of Multi-Level Action. And every year, at the beginning of the year, this steering committee could meet beyond a webinar like that. It could be part of the Global Task Force meeting in February. And we would also suggest the Daring Cities Forum that is hosted by ICLE in October could also be the second annual steering committee meeting, so that we gather our intelligence, our capacities, and preparations to COPs, which is usually at the end of the year, November and December, so that we are ready for this journey. When we say regional groups, this is the continental or let's say political divide or political groupings. We could think about Europe, Africa, Asia. Asia could be represented in a number of groups. Americas, especially from Mexico to Paraguay, that could be this let's say the global south of Americas could be one group, and another group could be similar to the UNFCCC groupings like North America, but it could also be possible to consider Japan, Australia, New Zealand also part of this group. So the logic is that these discussions will be aiming to give us the feedback from our regional networks, regional members of the LGMA, that they present their priorities into the negotiation items. And they could also be helping us to reach out to the cases where the UNFCCC bodies are asking for us. We could consult with them to nominate their representatives as either case studies and documents or speakers in the workshops or wherever else throughout the year. But then we have to have thematic groups, and I will focus on it a bit more and what type of thematic groups we may have. The logic is that the UNFCCC is becoming more and more complex. There are so many agenda items, and in all of them, we are invited to nominate an LGMA representative. So we have to be ready for that, and we have to be ready to be clear about what we will say, what we are asking in all these things, or what we are offering as contribution to the UNFCCC process. And finally, the COP working group. That's what we discussed last webinar. We have kicked off, and we'll come up with some updates on that, so that these regional and thematic groups could be a process which is more long-term or medium-term, which could be groups that could be continuing to work every 2 years, or let's say they can refresh themselves every 2 years. But since COP is moving from city to city, from country to country, from region to region, COP working groups should be annual, and it should be based on the priorities and relation with the host country and the host, let's say, regional grouping. Obviously, some partners, some networks will have more role, and others will have less role, because we're talking about our relation with the host country, the way we will be working with the host city, whether we will have a leader summit, whether we'll have a pavilion. This depends on really the local and national actors. So the working group of COP should be more on an annual basis, but others could be a bit more 2 years per period. So and it may be possible that networks who can have more than one role in any of those groups, so that organizations like ICLE, UCLG, or C40, those are the big global networks, but there are also others, regional networks, European, African, Asian, and American. They could be participating in different capacities and different branches of these networks, so that it's not just one person or one representative from every network, but every network, depending on their capacities, they can be participating in any of those groups. They can be co-leads and they can be multiple leads. It's a question of dedicating time and resources for this process. Let me continue what especially for the working group, thematic working groups, it's really not easy to navigate through the UNFCCC process. I'm now giving you a couple of slides, screenshots. UNFCCC is more than a COP. COP is a decision making at the end of the year, but it mandates so many bodies, it assigns so many tasks, it asks for so many follow-ups from different bodies, different mechanisms, so that when we say we are in the multi-level era, we as LGMA should be able to intervene in every agenda. This is a website, and this is the upper bar. You see, there are so many abbreviations, there are so many, let's say, processes, and I must confess, the logic is also not very clear. Why the capacity building portal, adaptation portal, and online registration system is displayed here in a different logic, and why the others are positioned here? The UNFCCC website logic is a bit different. This is when you look at the upper bar if you go to the UNFCCC homepage. If you go to the second bar, there is a section called topics. You see on the left, if you click on that, you see so many agenda items: capacity building, finance, gender, mitigation. New ones are coming. You see the market and non-market mechanisms are coming. These are new. So you have to go into each of them in order to see what's going on. There's another part. If you go to, again, if you keep yourself, if your cursor on the upper bar, there's another bar called climate action. And here is an area where we are a bit more familiar because it refers to Marrakesh Partnership, it refers to NASCA, Action for Climate Empowerment, NDC, Race to Zero here. For example, why is Race to Resilience not visible here? You can ask. So that's, again, a complicated process, but it's not finished yet. So there's another space where you could find some references. So these are the bodies. The term body is something really very interesting. We are talking about those who are meeting regularly, and they have their own decision-making process, they have their own reporting mechanisms, and each of them have their own different ways of engagement with stakeholders. Adaptation committee is meeting differently, standing committee on finance is engaging with us differently, joint implementation, adaptation fund board, these are all have different mechanisms. There are others, technical advisory bodies, technical executive committee. Now there's a new one coming, Santiago Network, for example. And if you see, this is, in fact, this structure that you see now is a document that is from the previous website of the UNFCCC. You cannot find this description now in the current UNFCCC website, which I believe it's a pity because I find myself a bit more clear, easier to explain the situation. But at the moment, if you go to UNFCCC bodies, it says process and meetings. You can, again, we're on the second bar. You go to bodies, each of them you have to click separately. Supreme bodies, COPs and SPs, the subsidiary bodies. Then COPs, COP-MOP, the CMA, again, the UNFCCC terminology. Then the subsidiary bodies come. Then constituted bodies come. And then comes funds and entities. It is mind-blowing. And it's you can imagine, as LGMA focal point, I am receiving almost every week another message that asks for an input, that invites for us to have one meeting, a workshop, a webinar. So it's impossible to handle these by one person or one organization. Therefore, we as LGMA networks, all these 30+ bodies, networks, or even more, those who are beyond that, we should be marking ourselves, getting together more regularly with a focused discussion on what will we say in Climate Technology Center, what will we say to a consultative group of experts, what will we say to indigenous platform. Here we have to be much more specific, and then those partners or individuals who are leading these thematic groups can then report back to us. They can share their recommendation. They can suggest us the activities that we have to undertake or positions that we have to adopt. The steering committee can then unanimously or collectively agree on that, and we can finish our positions and then communicate. We can communicate it to the UNFCCC as LGMA focal point and to the Friends of Cities, so that Friends of Multi-Level Action, so that this should be a decentralized, expert-led, but also legally and legitimate process within LGMA, so that then we are sure about what we are proposing for each of us. Let's remember, we have an agenda that is becoming more and more clear. Some of those events may still be postponed. For example, biodiversity COP, it's still not clear when it will be happening, but some of them are getting attraction. Race to Zero, the UNFCCC champions, as I said, on Monday, they will have a discussion, but they also have some new agenda items. For example, a consultation is taking place on the criteria for participation or eligibility, which will be open for anyone, and they will of course screen. But we as LGMA, we could also propose our experts to be in these working groups. We also are seeing that Race to Zero will shift a bit the emphasis from the numbers of commitments, but rather who is reaching to these goals and how much they are making progress or not making progress, and what are the reasons, and how can we help each other. Let's remember, Race to Zero is in practical sense is expecting that every signatory should be ensuring an annual emission reduction of their own responsibility by 7% per year. This is something that is not easy, and we all know, even those who are on the Race to Zero, cities and regions are, many of them are far below from this goal. But let's see how we will make sure the recognition and continuity of those commitments, if they are not able to fulfill that high-end, very, very extreme level of reductions. And it may be possible that the goal could be that, yes, we may not be able to make this progress fast enough now because we just committed yesterday or last week or last year, but Race to Zero could help us, and the Marrakesh Partnership and the partners could help us to help these members, those who committed, so that they reach to these goals maybe in next year. They can be accelerating their progress. So that could be a thinking, but we will see, because this is still work in progress. I would like to come back actually. So this last slide. So after our presentation in December of the webinar, we have suggested this COP27 working group. It was a roadmap working group, but we'd like to know it as a working group. We have received as ICLE, as the focal point, a number of feedbacks. Our original proposal was that we will be convening as ICLE as focal point of LGMA. We would like to have co-facilitators, and at that time we were suggesting ICLE Africa and UCLG Africa. Over the past couple of weeks, we received a request from some partners who would wish to see themselves in a more active role rather than a participant, but rather as a co-facilitator. This includes FMDV, this includes EU, European Committee of the Regions, and we may also expect similar expressions from Rwanda Association of Local Governments, or Climate Change, or even UCLG MEVA. We also have received that they are ready to support the process from CMR, Regions for ICLE Europe, CDP, CC35. And again, because it's the winter break, there may be more to come up soon. But we, in principle, we believe it doesn't hurt us if we have more than 2 co-facilitators. We did not have time to discuss with UCLG Africa and ICLE Africa yet, because that is a bit stretched in terms of the timing of this webinar and the capacity for us all coming back from our breaks. But that's at least the situation as of today. And then I think, again, this is a work in progress. It's not, it doesn't have to be concluded today, but I think we are getting progress, making progress, and we look forward to more feedbacks. And today, I think we could start to continue this discussion. Participants of today could give their feedbacks in the afternoon as well, but also once we share this ideas, we could continue with other partners as well. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation as of today, and I'd like to open the floor for questions and remarks, and feel free to raise your hands or type into the chat box so that we can unmute you, or we can even turn on your camera so that we can all connect to each other. Through this opportunity, I'd like to once again thank you for your attention. And I forgot to mention that I wish you all a happy, safe, and prosperous 2022, because this was our first webinar of the year. So let me give a break and take a deep breath so that I can refresh myself. Meanwhile, feel free to raise your hand, type into chat box so that we have this interactive discussions. I think today our partners are a bit less active than they used to be. Let me put it a bit diplomatically. So I haven't seen any request for the floor yet, or any hands raised. Of course, we do not have to force you. You can take your time to digest this presentation, and we could continue these consultations. But this is open for now. Time for us. We can talk about. We have an input from Lucy Latham. She has put in her inputs to the chat box. Lucy, if you want, you can also raise your hand and intervene verbally and read out your intervention, or even provide background. Let me read your input. Thank you for the great presentation. This is a comment, not a question. But in the run-up to COP27, I'd like to have more dialogue between LGMA group and Race to Resilience Steering Group. Perfect, Lucy, that's more than welcome. And in fact, we have, Lucy, just forgive me if you can remind your organization so that we can also, perfect, CDP, Lucy, thanks a lot. Sorry, I should have not ignored this, but thanks for reminding me, and thanks for your patience. CDP, perfect. That's definitely a more than welcome call and invitation. In fact, we have colleagues from ICLE Africa who are leading the cities Race to Resilience, and maybe we could continue on that. So I see now a hand from Anthony from WWF. I will just give the floor to you. But there's another input from Susan Nolan from City of Bonn. Yunus, could you elaborate a bit more on the connection between the Rio conventions? There will be a UNCCD COP in 2022 as well. How will ICLE engage, and how will that influence the work of future steering committee? Thanks, Susan. The Rio conventions this year is a unique year, as you have noticed. Maybe, yeah. The calendar is on the screen now. The 3 Rio conventions focusing on desertification, climate, and biodiversity will have their COPs this year, Conference of Parties. This is both an opportunity and a risk. Opportunity in the sense that it is an opportunity for us to ensure synergies between these processes. A risk that it may be distracting our capacity or weakening our capacity to follow all of them. According to the calendar, official calendar, Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire will host the COP of the desertification early May. The biodiversity COP is expected in Kunming in China end of April, but it's highly likely that it will be postponed to the second half of the year because of the COVID restrictions and limitations. And the climate COP in Egypt. So these are, it will be in November. 2 COPs, so 3 COPs, 2 of them in Africa and 1 of them in China. And we also are aware China is a strong partner of Africa in many fronts. So there will be a strong, hopefully, a connection between G7 and China and COPs. But how we will make sure the synergy, it's not clear yet. And then we definitely have to consider this as part of our consultations and our strategies. Let's give you one example. The Edinburgh process, which was very powerful in the biodiversity negotiation, which is now even on the table as a decision for a second 10-year. Unfortunately, the same country, which is the UK, who have been pushing this agenda in the biodiversity, did not mention anything about this in the UNFCCC negotiations. So there is already a disconnect between parties, between the processes. We as ICLE, and of course, all the engagement in the biodiversity and the climate and this, we'd like to make sure this processes hear each other. For example, that was the reason we wanted to host an Edinburgh Day or Biodiversity Day, Edinburgh Process Day at the Multi-Level Action Pavilion at COP26 Blue Zone. That's why we wanted to emphasize that we have a lot of resources. I think this message is going through, and we could benefit from our experiences. On the desertification, there is a COP decision that desertification community is aiming to work with more with local environments. We have to see, but it's through the process is not well established as the way it is in the biodiversity and climate negotiations. So let's see, but we have a very good working relation with the UNCCD Secretariat for years, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to build on. Carl writes from former executive director of Commonwealth Local Government Forum, but also now in his capacity in the Canterbury, as far as I know. Carl, correct me. So you are one of the newest members of the LGMA accredited organizations. He's giving an update on the Commonwealth Local Government Conference organized by Commonwealth Local Government Forum. It will take place in Kigali in mid-2022, hosted by RALGA and Rwanda government, which would allow dialogue, including with many central governments pre-COP27. Definitely, this was one of our agendas in 2021, hoping that a session, an event in Rwanda will give us the opportunity to elevate the voice of Africa and the multi-level collaboration, because Rwanda was the first country who had made a submission from Africa region and UNDC, and in particular, it was strong in a multi-level collaboration. With RALGA, we have engaged with them in the part of the COP26 working group. RALGA delivered LGMA intervention at the closing of the COP26. So there is numerous opportunities. I don't know whether Ladislas is here in today's webinar, but we are in touch with him so that we can keep RALGA as the bridge between Commonwealth Local Government Forum and COP27 advocacy. That's why I do believe there's a huge benefit if we can have RALGA as one of the co-facilitators as well. So thanks, Carl, for addressing that. Anthony, we have gone through all the inputs, so feel free to turn on your microphone or screen if you want, and feel free to provide your inputs.
Thanks very much, Yunus, and a happy New Year to you. I just can't see how to turn on my camera, but my question was just about Race to Zero. I thought it had been remarkably quiet since Glasgow, but then I noticed that your screen here, you've actually got the Race to Zero calendar. So that sort of answered my question. I was just wondering what the plans were. I guess it sort of raises the question of the city's Race to Zero. Haven't heard much from them either recently, and I don't know whether you have any news there or any insights.
Thanks. Highlighting Anthony, for those who are in the call, Anthony is representing WWF, Cities team, and WWF is one of the partners of Cities Race to Zero as well. Anthony, you're right. This was, I mean, everybody was extremely loaded after COP, and there are certain internal processes going on, especially within our colleagues at C40. We are aware that they have some certain restructuring. Yesterday, we were at the Race to Zero first call of the year, partners call. So it's not just Cities Race to Zero, but all the other partners. And that was an opportunity to hear these updates from Race to Zero. And we also discussed with Agathe from C40 that it's also time for us to bring together the Cities Race to Zero partners. I think soon there will be a communication from Agathe. It was just a lack of time and capacity, but also I think we were all waiting for some guidance from Race to Zero and Marrakesh Partnership and champions. Let's remember the Egyptian champion is still not assigned. So I think we will just wait and see a bit more in the next couple of days and weeks. And I would like to particularly recommend that we follow the session on Monday by Nigel, who will mainly announce this consultation for criteria. But I think Nigel will also make an explanation about his counterpart into the Egyptian side, and we may even hear this from the announcement from the COP26 president. Actually, on Monday there will be two events at 12 o'clock GMT. Alok Sharma will make a speech, and 4 p.m. GMT, Nigel will host this regional consultation workshop. So I will circulate the links to these events as well after this call. And in the meantime, let's make sure that there will be some communication within the cities race to zero as well. And in that sense, I think maybe we could expect some things to come up next week or so. And in fact, there is also another ongoing agenda. The Middle East, North Africa Regional Climate Week is also advancing. There are side event applications, plans for going forward. So I mean, in this presentation, as you may have noticed, I did not focus too much on outsiders, but I spent a bit more time in our LGMA governance work, and actually, I believe we will still have some consultations on that, but this gives us the reason why we have to diversify and we have to be more focused in our engagement in the UNFCCC process. I see no other inputs. Anthony thanks us, and thanks a lot. If not, we can come to a closure of this session so that we can still save time. But if not, this is your last chance. But once again, I thank you all for your participation. You will be receiving the link to registration of this, link to the recording of this webinar, as well as the presentation, and some other links will be coming soon. So with this, I wish you all a nice day and night wherever you are, and look forward to staying in touch. Bye-bye.